Okay, thank you all for coming. It is 6:05. I will now call to order the January 28th, 2019 meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. The meeting is being recorded. Are there any public concerns or non-agenda items? Being none, thank you. We will move to public hearings and meetings. First item, continuation of the public hearing for an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by Beacon Solar LLC seeking confirmation of various wetland boundaries at 50 Florence Road, map 115, lots 2 and 5. Is there anyone here for this item? Member of the public has identified they are here for this item. Mallory, you had forwarded correspondence from this afternoon. Was there any indication?
So I didn't receive any correspondence from the applicant. I only received...
What was the 3:48 p.m.?
Let's check. I received multiple third-party review proposals today.
I think there's like 4 of them, right?
Okay.
There's 5 in total,
5? Wow.
but there was a few today.
Sorry, door locked, side door open. I figured it out. Yes, you clearly did. Okay, I guess I was referring to...
Oh, go back. You said 3:59.
At 3:48, I thought you received one at 3:48 that you forwarded that had...
I have one at 2:48.
Maybe that's what I imagined. Maybe you forwarded it. Was there
Yeah.
anything from Berkshire Design?
For River Valley?
I got my 2 sites confused. Sorry. All right. So could you? So we've received
5
5
proposals.
proposals for peer review services, and do they all? Are they apples to apples?
Generally, I got a few. The last one I got was at 5:10, so I wasn't fully able to do a really detailed comparison. But I asked them specifically to what to include in the proposal at the time of the request. So,
Can you give a range of prices?
yeah, okay. So I'll go through who submitted them first, I guess. Emily Stockman Associates. I don't want to say her name wrong, but it's Freshwater Wetland Services, and it's
Kate Bednaz.
Bednaz. Okay. And
Or I'm saying it wrong. And ignore it.
and then there is David Gordon with Pure Consultants. And then I have GZA. And then Swicca.
Okay.
So for basically what I had asked them to do for scope of work was to do a review of the ANRAD for regulatory compliance, to prepare a written peer review report, to attend one commission meeting, to complete a field review for the work as proposed.
Work or boundaries?
Boundaries, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And to add 3 hours of review, coordination, and correspondence with the applicant.
Okay.
And then a few of them just kind of prepared them a little bit differently in that they didn't split up it by task, or that they had not included direct expenses and others had included them.
So if we were to just look at the bottom line, compare the bottom line, what would that be?
So for Stockman Associates, it's $5,750. For Freshwater Wetland Services, the total, sorry, one second. $3,500.
Okay.
For peer review consultants, I believe I might have to do some addition here. Yeah. Yeah, sure. So I think it starts here at 1. Okay, so for GZA, I'll move on to GZA. $5,500. SWICA is $5,650 with an optional. They gave an optional task of return to the site with the agent or consultant.
Okay, well, that's an add-on that we
Right.
would not consider at this time, but it's good to know for reference.
And then I think Jess is just adding.
6,837 for peer consultants.
Oh my.
Can you double check that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems,
Yeah.
I mean, I believe you.
Each of the items is,
So they have, okay, so they have, for a review of the ANRAD, it's 1195.
so the reason that that's high is I added in any extra in-field review
Okay.
days would be
Right,
charged
okay.
an additional
Yeah,
almost
okay, so
$1,300.
we'll go,
So,
you just want to subtract that?
yeah,
Okay.
so it would be 5,500
Okay.
and 5,545.
Okay. So they're all fairly consistent except with freshwater is the lowest. And I'll double check that one too.
It's the applicant that pays, right?
Yeah, so the process is the applicant provides a check in the amount of the estimated fee, or however it's set up, and that goes into essentially an escrow account, and the city pays out of the escrow account, because the third-party reviewer is working for the commission, not the applicant, because that would then
Conflict of interest.
potentially bias.
Is Freshwater qualified? I've never heard of them before.
Kate's a
Not that-
PWS.
Okay.
Yep.
Are the other ones lump sum? Was this one is hourly with an estimate of 3,500?
Who is this?
The one that's lower,
Freshwater.
freshwater.
Yeah, it has a, yeah, I'm looking at the one, it has an the estimated budget of 35, yeah. Proposes on an hourly at FWS standard rates. That doesn't indicate a standard.
The rates are provided up top. 90 for senior.
90, okay, 90,
55
55.
per hour for junior.
Nothing.
That's still lower than the hourly rates on the other ones.
Sorry.
It's all right.
And GZA had the junior 125 and 175 for senior.
Did they identify the lead person from GZA?
They didn't. Well, yes. So, well, they have GZA PM, the project manager. Oh, consultant reviewer. Do you want the consultant reviewer?
Sure.
Steve Roberti.
Okay. It's a child.
Yes.
All right. Well, these all came in this afternoon. So, Mallory, how would you advise we go about making the selection?
Is this urgent at this point, based on,
I mean, we could all take time between now and the next meeting to review. Our next meeting is February 11th.
only because of the snow cover and?
Right, they're not getting
they're
out
not
there
gonna- they're not
anytime
getting out
soon.
there, right?
I'm fine with giving the commissioners time to review
Okay.
and deferring this decision till our February 11th meeting,
Okay.
just so we can do a more
Thorough.
thorough analysis, and everyone will be able to have time to do that. So, I guess at this point, is there a motion to continue to February 11th, 2019 at 6 p.m.
Motion to continue Beacon Solar LLC for 50 Florence Road to February 11th, 6 p.m.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Next item on the agenda, continuation of the public hearing for a notice of intent filed by River Valley Cooperative Market for site redevelopment of an existing car dealership and parking lot, including demolition and construction of a new supermarket parking lot and associated site work, including photovoltaic roof panels in the parking lot, the widening of Route 10, and reconfiguration of the Lyman Street intersection, and reconfiguration of the existing restaurant on site. The project also seeks a city stormwater permit. Project location is 228 Northampton Street, adjacent portions of Route 10 and Lyman Street. Map 114, lots 12, 12-1, 12-2, Lyman Street right-of-way, and Route 10 right-of-way. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well. Be so kind as to introduce yourself for the record and maybe move those a little closer as you start pointing at them.
Okay, move closer to you guys, sure.
Unless, and if anyone else wants to see, they can move up closer
Okay.
as well. But they're very hard to see from here.
We'll move them as needed. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Jeff Squire from the Berkshire Design Group. I believe last time Mark Darnold was before he was home with the flu, unfortunately, so here we are. But I've been involved with this project from the start, so certainly know the ins and outs of what's going on. I'm aware there were some comments and questions at the last hearing. We've subsequently received some stormwater comments, and what was provided via email this afternoon. I do have hard copies with me if you want hard copies.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Were our responses to DEP's comments, responses to, you're all set. Responses to Conservation Department comments, and responses to stormwater. And then with that, there's also a revised plan set. I'll leave a copy with you of most of them. I think I can probably address just through the presentation, and I'll certainly point out a few things on the plans as we work through them. I guess in terms of procedure, is it just best to go through all the comments?
Sure.
I don't know the easiest way to.
So is the revision date on these the entire set January 28th?
Not
is it
the
only
entire
certain
set. No,
sheets?
the specific sheets
Okay.
have been noted as being revised.
Okay.
So I can work through what all the revisions have been. With respect to the existing condition plans, L100 and 101, really it's just the addition of that wetland adjacent to Cumberland Farms. We took that from the notice of intent and permit set from
Thank
that
you.
project to identify that resource area. So that's the update to those two sheets. And the remainder are sort of enveloped in the comments. So I guess the easiest thing to do is probably just work through the comments and talk about how we addressed the various comments. So first up are the responses to DEP comments. They have four. One was about an additional fee for the solar panels located in this buffer zone. We did, there's the check for the city. We did send out the additional fee to DEP today, so that answers the first one. Two was regarding prior approvals for this site or sites, and we're not aware, we don't know the permitting history of this site specifically. That was before we, became involved. This was an existing stormwater outfall, so that's as redevelopment of the site occurs, that's where our, responsibility really begins, is to bring that up to standard. So we're not really aware or have any knowledge of prior permits or approvals for discharges. That's not really our purview. So that was the response.
Mallory, did you find anything around the, circa 1985 in the commission's files, or?
I haven't done a deep dive. I was kind of hoping to have a
Okay.
response to this. I didn't know if you
Okay.
had any.
Yeah, and I don't know, you know, even, yeah, I don't know what happens with her. I mean, obviously, if they were approved with a discharge, it's there, and we're, you know, we're continuing to use it. If it wasn't, I don't know, you know, what course of action is, so. Third comment, stormwater BMP. So he was talking about specifically the ability to manage below these solar panels, which are located off the parking lot and in the grassed areas. You know, the response is that we really don't foresee that being any different than maintaining area below a ground-mounted array. There's a maintenance plan for that drainage basin as it is, which is to be loamed and seeded. So there will be, you know, periodic, and we expect that that maintenance program will just extend to cover, you know, whatever areas below those arrays. It's not an extensive array, so it's not something that, you know, is going to be prohibitively difficult to maintain or manage. As will they, you know, as much in the same way that they'll maintain, you know, the landscaping site around the rest of the site.
Do the drawings contain a detail showing us that height, like what?
No, and that's
No?
what we're working through. I mean,
Okay.
it's not going to be very, you know, very low. There's a, you know, they're in a feasibility study phase with the solar company, so a lot of those final details is going to be pending the results of that study. We anticipate that they're going to be 6-8 feet, you know, off the ground, you know, typical array height. Obviously, the carports will be tall enough to, you know, to allow cars to park below them. But all of the final details for those have not been ironed out. And then the last comment was a couple of comments about whether there's any fencing proposed. No, there is no fencing proposed. Again, this is a, you know, fairly small array. We did agree that there was an area right at the tip of one of the wetland points there that was very close to some of the panels, so we did take some of the panels out there to provide some additional room. And also on sheet L300, we did add some notes about signage. So the idea is that we would include, you know, some signage delineating the edge of that wetland. You know, what that language would say, I don't know, but it would be, you know, the idea is that it would be there to educate the public that, you know, there's a resource area, you know, beyond the fence, that, you know, there's no disturbance over there, but at least a you know, gesture toward delineating where that boundary is. And then the last question is about TSS removal. So Melissa, and you may be aware of this, you know, as well here, but the issue is that the stormwater standards for the state of Massachusetts required any structures to meet the Mass STEP program, which no longer exists. So the regulation refers you to a program that's not in existence anymore. And now what they're saying is that you need to refer to the New Jersey standards as a comparable you know, standard to look at. The issue is that the standards by which these structures are measured and studied is a different set of parameters and regulations in New Jersey than it is in Massachusetts. For instance, they regulate, you know, the particle size that needs to be removed from any runoff, and it's a very small particle size. So there isn't a stormwater structure, treatment structure, you know, any of the storm scepters, CDS, any of the, you know, the swirl chamber structures that we've been using, you know, in all our years of practice, that will treat stormwater to the level that New Jersey requires because of the particle size. It's such a small particle size, and they base it on particle size, not the volume and rate of water, which is what Massachusetts regulates. So the only way to satisfy an 80% TSS removal, which is what Massachusetts requires, is to utilize a media filter, which is a, you know, several $100,000, not $100,000, but it's a $50,000, you know, structure with, you know, with like a pool filter, essentially. And typically they're required on sites with very high pollutant loads, where you know there's going to be oil and chemicals, you know, leaching off into the stormwater. That's what the media filters are typically for, not for, you know, standard parking lots, you know, where all over New England and in this area especially, these storm scepter units or similar ones have been the standard practice for CSS removal. And up until just recently did DEP make this suggestion that we use New Jersey standards. So we are satisfying all the other stormwater requirements in terms of pretreatment. The percentages we've calculated. The water quality and designed this system in accordance with the same regulations that we've been designing stormwater for the past 35 years. It's the same same level of quality, and we do have information from the at least the storm scepter in this case, which is what we're proposing, which is a proprietary structure. It's there's a history and a proven track record of DSS removal in the region. So that's where we are with that one. I don't know if there's any, I can move on to some of the department comments unless there's any other questions.
Mallory, did you forward these responses to the city stormwater, or the city engineer? Assistant engineer?
Yeah, so I did forward it to the staff engineer, just because she was able to provide like some quick responses. And then I had provided a few comments based off of some of the things that we discussed at the last meeting, but I think I might have, I don't know if I got them all.
Okay, well, let's go through and see.
Okay. So next up in my stack here are some of the comments that Mallory was just referring to. One was about concerns about oil and gas and any other contaminants that might be associated with the existing use or structure during demolition and construction. We've undergone a phase 2 environmental. There's been nothing identified on the site that hasn't already been removed and dealt with. We're going to use absolutely standard practices during demolition and in accordance with all the applicable laws, and don't anticipate that there's going to be anything out of the ordinary, and we'll certainly address it.
So I don't know what the rules were about floor drains in 1985. Were there any floor drains in the
garage bays?
In the garage
I'm
bays?
sure there are.
And best practices aside, I'm sure there were best practices, good housekeeping at the time, but the potential is there. Do you know if or where those floor drains discharge?
Any of the discharges that may exist on the site are all going to be demolished. All of that's going to be taken away.
But what I'm asking is, do we know if they discharge to daylight, or did they discharge directly to the ground?
They
Or is the answer not known?
we don't really know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you please identify yourself for the record?
I could add something. Martin Fedor.
Thank you.
Those floor drains went into an oil water separator, which was located outside the right-hand side of the building.
So
right hand being north?
Yes.
North.
Okay. Okay, and is that identified on the plans to be demolished
That's
and
to be
removed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So that was addressing question number 1. Question 2 was about installation of the drain at the top of the site. This French drain really just to collect groundwater and discharge it out there. I don't think that, we had any comment about the first 2 sentences. It is a stormwater outfall. It is a new point source. We did recognize that or identify that in the notice of intent application. And still a small amount of wetland impacts that occur. I guess the last piece was just shading or any potential impacts that this solar array down toward the edge of the wetland might have on the BVW. I think given its extent and how much there really is there, we don't foresee shading to be a substantial issue or negatively impact the BVW. Third one was about snow storage. So we did do a quick, snow storage plan of, at least in terms of identifying areas that you could, that we have to potentially store snow. Most of these are inland and away from resource area. There's a few that are along the edges. I think with these two in particular, the idea is that the intent is to put them into areas where there are stormwater structures, features designed to handle stormwater. So there's a maintenance program. Typically with these snow piles, they're piles that are created, during or after, immediately after a snow event. So typically this hasn't been all salted and sanded yet. It's, they push the snow into the piles and then they will typically sand and salt it after that. It's not to say you don't get some in there, but certainly the salt and anything that leaches out of that as those piles melt will be collected and managed by whatever, either this system or this system. We don't anticipate that that's going to be an extraordinarily high level of either sand or salt. Any trash will just will melt on the ground and will be picked up based on the maintenance plan for the remainder of the site. I don't anticipate that snow storage and any more here than it will be anywhere else in the city.
Has that drawing been provided to the commission? Is
The
it part of the
snow storage
stormwater
diagram?
or other? Yeah.
Not this one, no. This I just did for presentation
Okay.
purposes. Fourth comment was about the buffer zone adjacent to the Cumberland Farms site. That was, as I mentioned before, that's been updated on those sheets. The fifth statement, a comment about the depth to groundwater and preventing potential contamination of groundwater, particularly from parking lot runoff. And the only place that we have very shallow separation are in these trenches, which are in the parking lot. Those are all designed to be lined with an impermeable liner because of that very concern. So these.
Well, go ahead.
So these trenches are stone-filled trenches with an impermeable liner on the inside. There's a perforated pipe at the bottom. It's a stone-filled trench. On the surface, there's a layer of filter fabric and larger stone to help filter any material that comes in off the parking lot. And then there's overflow inlets. All of that gets treated and runs through the stormwater treatment chamber at the end of the system.
So I guess one of the questions.
There is no direct discharge in this location for or infiltration of stormwater there.
So I guess one of the general concerns I have is that basin that kind of parallels the south edge of pavement. Yes. The proposed contours bring it down about 2 feet, so 24 inches, and depth to seasonal high groundwater in that location was identified at around 30 inches, so that's where there's only a 6-inch difference in elevation.
So there is a stone filter strip along that whole edge of the parking lot that is there specifically for pre-treatment. And the remainder of that is, again, it's designed, to handle just overflow, right, from the remainder of the system. Groundwater, I'm not exactly sure, I'd have to look at the test pit locations. Groundwater really is, what we've observed is really roughly where the wetland edge starts. And I think part of what's happened on the site has been filled in various, over the years, different locations, different materials. And I think there's places where, depending on the material that's underneath, particularly up here, is a little bit more porous, so groundwater tends to pop up a little bit more than it does in some other locations.
I think you have 4 test pits.
We did
And then,
4, right.
Pretty much all of them except for test pit 2 were 30 inches or less. However, there wasn't a test pit really done.
Down on this edge.
Yeah.
Stormwater flow again.
Backwards.
I think that's probably why I'm having trouble remembering. So
Yeah, so,
I'm just trying to remember which way different stormwater flow. So these
Yep.
go this way, they get intercepted in this pipe.
yep. And overland flow comes off into the swale and then into the pipe through there.
And then this comes down here and discharges here?
Yep, I think.
Okay,
Those little arrows.
okay.
Yep.
And was any stormwater credit or taken for infiltration within that area?
For this, I don't believe so.
Okay. I don't think you can
No, I
with
think- I
6
think we
inches
took-
of
I think all of it-
separation.
All our infiltration, I think we got in these larger basins out the front.
That elevation level over there along the swale is
Mhm.
actually, it says, that's the that's the, largest separation, which is 60 inches, is actually the one that's right near the wetland. The rest, it's the rest of them that are around the parking lot that are like 30 or 24 inches.
So you're saying that over here it's 60 inches?
Over by the wetland, that's what it says on, yeah, that's test pit 2, and that's approximately 60 inches.
But wasn't this the one where Mark told us that they had assumed because the elevation of the wetland was obvious that you just took a lower?
No, it wasn't assumed, but it goes to what I was saying before, is when we dug this one, there was a much more direct correlation between the groundwater and the adjacent wetland at that location than there were in some of the others, because I think of the material that was used to fill the site. That, some of the 30 inches, I don't know, the material, as you drop down, I think the groundwater wanted to squeeze between a couple of those layers, which is why it was so shallow underneath the parking lot. For example, it could have been a layer of, clay with more permeable material on top of it, and the groundwater, especially coming off this hill, would tend to just stay in that upper layer.
So the wetlands at elevation 183.
Yeah.
And the bottom here is, all right. Okay.
Stormwater basement. So, I'm sorry, and I skipped over, about, construction in groundwater. There will be some locations on the site where there's gonna be some excavations that, will encounter groundwater. I do obviously use, best management practices, and, in that set, we've included a temporary, dewatering basin. On the last page, there's a detail for dewatering basin, so I would suspect that, any groundwater encountered, they would, use a dewatering pump into a temporary basin, and they will have a NIPD's permit to cover general construction for the site anyway. So that would certainly be part of that.
So going back to having added the wetland boundary and the approximate limits of 100-foot buffer zone from the wetland across the street, is that a new point source discharge
No.
to buffer zone? That's
No.
an existing
Yes.
stormwater pipe?
Yep. So that pipe right now collects water from Lyman Street, from Route 10, and from a portion of the front of Captain Jack's parking lot.
I don't know that we're talking about the same pipe. No.
Okay.
Do you want to come over here so you can see what I'm pointing at? So this one.
This is roof runoff to a basin.
That's, okay.
Yep.
All right.
These are all, there's an existing catch basin and drain there now for this whole parking lot.
Okay.
And the rest of it is just reworking drainage structures in Lyman Street as part of that realignment. And there was a final comment about erosion control details, and the last sheet now includes erosion control barrier, limit protection, stabilized construction pad, Payson. I was referring to earlier.
So the proposed erosion control barrier is a silt sock, compost,
Silt sock and fence, yep,
and silt fence.
and silt fence. Silt sock as opposed to a straw wattle, because they're a lot heavier.
Yep. Mallory, there's a note number 4 under the erosion control barrier detail. Compost material to be dispersed on site is determined by the landscape architect.
Sorry, I'm not sure we're in the same place.
I'm
Where-
on sheet
You just can't see it.
L.00.
It's right there.
Okay, sorry, I'm not zoomed in enough.
That's understandable on a laptop.
Okay.
Especially.
Go ahead.
So note number 4 says compost material to be dispersed on site as determined by the landscape architect.
Mhm.
I guess I would.
No compost in the wetlands?
Yeah.
That's kind of like the vegetated, only real, I mean,
Is that kind of like the what?
like it's pretty much the most vegetated area that will be on the site.
Right.
So perhaps it should just be taken away.
I guess what in your experience has that manifested itself as on an actual project site?
I guess it depends on the site. I mean, oftentimes in along a really wooded edge, it'll just get raked out and
Right.
it just sort of disappears.
But on this site,
On this site, it may not be that easy.
it's going to be right against an herbaceous wetland,
Um,
which is not really the best place to
right.
create a berm,
Yep.
even
So
if it is
I
compostable
I mean,
material.
I guess, yeah, we can either, certainly we'll defer to your judgment. Combined with either removing it or making it part of the, final seeding operation, stabilization. We could leave the silt fence in place and remove the silt sock and remove that debris and rake it off into the, into the lawn before we seed, leave the erosion, the silt fence in place to prevent any, any erosion during a storm, but at least that would provide an opportunity to get rid of the material on site, and it shouldn't have any real impact on the lawn areas. But whatever.
Just for my own understanding, I'm on sheet L.200. That is this the only sheet that shows the location of the erosion control barrier, or is it called out on other sheets?
I think this was probably the only sheet just for clarity. It certainly will remain throughout the duration of construction.
I just wanted to know if there's somewhere else I should be looking as well.
Yeah, no, that was, just for clarity purposes, that was the run. We ran it all along that wetland edge, and then it runs along this street edge.
Oh, it does run along the
It does
street
run
edge.
along the street edge,
But there's a gap in between?
There are
Or
in
is that a
places,
line
depending
cut?
on where obviously those curb cut locations are gonna be changed, they're either gonna be closed or modified. I would anticipate as they come out, they would put, they would fill those gaps with erosion control as necessary.
So will all locations have the filter, the compost filter tube?
Sure.
And the silt fence, or?
They'll have it wherever we can, yeah, so in the only places that we won't be able to put silt fence initially will be where there's existing paving.
Right.
Once it comes out, we can what we can do, the silt sock in those locations, we can certainly lay those across the road that aren't,
Well-
entrance. Once that pavement comes out, we're happy to put in silt fence behind it.
What are some other opinions of that? Is that adequate? Is that appropriate? Is that overkill? I think from my perspective, the most sensitive area is obviously along the wetland boundary. Although I do have a little bit of a question when we get past this point about how it's shown around that existing stone culvert or stone head wall. Yeah. But what's being intercepted by the one along the road? What's that? is that protecting the site from runoff from the road, or is that protecting the road from runoff from the site?
It could be a combination of both.
Okay.
I guess, I mean, when there's disturbance ongoing on the site, you wouldn't really want more road runoff during that
Yep.
specific period ending up in there and it giving you a muddy construction site, so.
Okay, think about that. So as it's shown on this drawing, the erosion control barrier starts off near Route 10,
Yep.
arcs up and around the back side
Yep.
of the head wall. But I think the description was that this was going to be excavated up to the head wall. So that would be modified during construction when you get, when,
So the
You
head
get to
wall
that
is,
point?
it's a dry laid stone head wall.
Mhm.
So we envision that all a contractor is gonna do is take apart the wall,
Mhm.
fence is gonna come out, or the existing pipe is gonna come out, and a new one will get dropped in.
Mhm.
And the wall will get rebuilt in
Mhm.
the same manner around it. There will be a period where they will have to open up that silt fence
Mhm.
to allow for the construction of, for the installation, removal and installation of the new pipe. But following that, we would envision that, the idea is to get it immediately stabilized.
Mhm.
And so they would, within a day or two, I can't imagine that process would take that long
Mhm.
to put that silt fence and barrier back up in that location, is the idea.
Mallory, have you got experience with that kind of sequencing where, I mean, I understand it
They're
needs
just
to be adjusted.
swapping.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
usually down the stream. Reconstruction.
Right.
Crossing construction.
Fortunately, we're not crossing a stream here.
Yeah. I did notice, so on that one, you did change the pipe to 24 inches, is that
Mhm.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
And that was what was in the calculations, right?
Stormwater report, right.
What pipe got changed to 24? This says 12.
Yeah, I think it's supposed, it was supposed to be changed to 24, I think,
It
based
may
off
not
this.
have
Oh,
been
I'm
that
sorry,
long,
that's
right.
that's existing, all right.
Yeah, that's existing.
That still says 12.
The,
And now it says 24 here. Got it. 12 leading into it.
Question about that pipe as well. During the site visit, we noticed that the existing pipe is below the grade elevation, but it's proposed to be installed at the same elevation.
Right.
Has that been looked at yet?
So there's, what I understand is there's a small depression where the pipe comes out, there's a little berm, and then it slopes back down into the wetland. So there's a little hump between where the pipe outlet is and further, into the wetlands. It's at a lower elevation, further away, but there's a little hump there as a result of, I imagine, just, sediment and debris that has come out of that outfall, for how many years. And it's become vegetated. So, we don't anticipate that it's gonna be an issue because it's functioned, fine in its current condition. We're certainly making some improvements. If, we would love to do some work and clean that up a little bit, although it triggers a much larger can of worms. So, it's something that we would certainly entertain if the commission, would allow us to, but there's some maintenance that would need to occur within, BVW to take that little hump away.
Is another option to have the pipe outfall at an elevation that would put it on top of that hump?
We don't have much elevation here. It's such a, we have such shallow depth to groundwater as we were talking about before, and, to provide enough cover over, the pipes that we need for this site. I'd have to look, we maintained as minimal slopes as we can in most locations, and almost all locations, again, just because of the depth issue. We could, certainly look at reducing some of those if we have any ability to try and raise this, but I'm not all that confident that we have a lot of tolerances left in the slopes there at 1%, 0.5%.
I'd say it's not worth, well, the discharge rates aren't significant. So I would say either your option or it's not worth
Not worth it, yeah. it's
triggering
getting-
all the BVW replacement area requirements in
Right.
Western region
Right,
for 5 square feet.
right.
Okay.
And then the last,
These from.
what's amazing there, the last couple of pages were just responses to some of the questions raised in the stormwater report or stormwater permit application. I'm happy to run through these. Most of these are pretty technical in nature, just, changing them inverts, confirming, elevations of pipe sizes and depths. Questions about labels and cleanouts, so all of that stuff has been cleaned up and or added to the plan. And then question about pre-development impervious areas versus post-development, just as something to note. So pre-development impervious is a little over 140,000 square feet. Under the proposed plan, we've got 137,000 square feet. Question about leaders, dash lines, erosion and sediment controls have been included. And then there were a couple of edits and or additions to the operation and maintenance plan. There's a reference to Belchertown in there, which obviously was an error. And then there was a request for some sort of maintenance log for the treatment chamber, which we included on the last couple of pages. And I know that Diane did email out a couple of questions or comments a little after 5 today. Again, it's really, the majority of this is just general housekeeping stuff, just coordinating, details, and it says 10 inches here and 12 inches on this detail. Stormwater calculations are correct and everything's modeled correctly. And again, it's just coordinating all the rules.
Thank you. So one administrative detail, Mallory, that came up was the site's current owner. Has that information been provided?
I think that we had,
Do we have a signature?
I think that we had that was one of the initial things that I had sent to you, Jeff.
We did submit the notice of intent application with the original signatures on it.
So, no, that wasn't the question. The question is that the current property owner is not the applicant?
Right.
And so do we have the current property owner's signature as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you?
I believe you gave me a copy of the EDP, which didn't have any signatures
When I dropped
on
off the hard copies, there was a copy in there, did
Okay.
have both signatures. Because that was the updated version.
I will check.
I didn't bring a copy with me, but what I dropped off were original signatures for both the stormwater permit and the,
Was this your, so you had done the stormwater permit afterwards, and so the stormwater permit has these signatures on it if you want to.
Are they?
I'm not sure they're just signatures and
Okay.
they're not written.
Right, so then there was another one for the,
So this is a point of administrative clarification. Obviously, a representative of the property owner has been present at these meetings and is well aware of what's going on.
Yep.
Yep.
So this was the one of,
That was the
You-
EDEP version.
yeah,
and
that was the original, and then I have the revised one, which also doesn't have a signature on it.
it was- yeah. And I've got copies back at the office.
I have one other copy downstairs that I could check, but,
So, okay, that's always an option too. I don't think it's. If you wanna run down,
okay.
you're welcome to. I guess before you do, I looked quickly at Diane Rossini's email, and that was a preliminary, or, she did a preliminary review. And it was very, fortunate that she was able to turn that around so quickly, and it seemed to me that she identified a few more details to clarify.
Yes.
But I guess, so I guess if you wanna run downstairs and check, but I would
Okay.
like to continue this conversation with discussion of potential special conditions.
Okay.
So
Are you
if
gonna
wanna
go
take a
over?
moment?
You
I
could-
would like you to be present for that conversation.
Okay, I'll hear that.
Okay. So, this will just take a moment.
That's fine.
Did everybody get the sign-in sheet? Is it back?
No?
Did you get it?
Oh, yeah, if you, thank you.
What the hell? I'll give you a dog update.
Yes, thank you. Better be good news, right? Everyone okay?
So she was crying on her walk earlier today. I wasn't there, and I was walking her, and she was like super slow. So when I got home, I actually couldn't find her anywhere. She wasn't. She was on a couch that she never lies on. And she was like fine, but didn't really move. Like she wasn't crying or anything like that. So then, like as I was leaving, she got up. And I was like, I can't help you, but I have to.
Yeah.
So I
No,
like
of
took her
course.
outside and gave her some food, and she seemed fine. So, but I was like, I can't desert her. And she
No, of
finally
course
got
not.
up. And I didn't want to like make her get up when I first got home. So.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I hope so. Excellent.
She's gonna be fine. She's a young 12 or 13.
It's a very young dog. She's
Yeah,
totally
very
fine.
I don't know. Haley just went on arthritis meds and it's such a difference.
That's helpful to hear. Because this is new. Sometimes she'll like limp with just
Yeah.
one leg.
You made a mess.
I made a big mess. Can't take me anywhere.
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera.
But she's been sort of getting worse over the last few years, but right before Christmas, it's just like back legs just aren't gonna function anymore. And I was like, oh, wow. We got her on meds and she's like trying all over again.
Good. And there aren't side effects.
Not so far.
That's great.
Our friend's dog is out there. It's an old cocker spaniel. Blind, deaf, responds to food drink.
Who doesn't?
It's like, and like CBD stuff. I don't know how to give it to her.
Maggie got some CBD biscuits for her dad's dog, and we took a few because for vet trips or something, and put them in with Dewey's food, and accidentally just fed them to her like with her food. I couldn't tell like if there was any effect of it. Somebody else told me this terrible story today. Oh, it actually ends up being good, but anyway, stopped walking for like 2 years when the dog was like young-ish, so when turned out it was a tick, and they like removed all the ticks and the dog was fine. But the vet wanted to put the tick down initially. Yeah. Seems like not tick season.
So there's always ticks.
I know, I feel like the swing seasons are the worst for ticks. Today felt so cool.
I don't know. I think it's as reflected by my pathetic state. Weekend, work day.
It's okay. I think mine's the opposite today. I had an extremely lazy weekend.
Were you in the field today or just like wandering
printer. Pick stuff up. It was more stuff than I did this weekend, I think.
I snowshoed Mount Toby.
We're just waiting for the agent to come back upstairs after checking a file.
Intermission. This is a halftime. I wonder if anybody would perform for our halftime show.
Nope. Not it.
From the public.
Maroon 5.
Please. Start to finish. Go.
Can you really?
No person shall worship full trash. Yeah, she. You could get pretty far.
I'm actually somebody other than
Substantially changing or enlarging access to the lawfully living structure for some purpose. Used for the service of the public and used for the purpose of providing water, sewer, telephone,
You've got that
telecommunication.
look of both impressiveness and slight
Extreme bored.
disdain.
So unfortunately, this one doesn't have a signature on it either.
Okay.
Well, can we,
I think that's.
Yeah, could you sign it
well,
now?
Sign it now if that's. I mean-
Is Mr. Feeder, I'm assuming you're an authorized representative?
Yes.
Okay.
You want me to sign?
So many. Okay. Do we have the original one with the originals, just so that they're all original, or, I'm not that hung up on original signatures on permit applications, the commission.
Well, they had submitted the WPA form separately, so it just doesn't have
Oh,
any signatures on it.
can we just collect signatures now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, with
I'm
the
assuming,
EPP, you
I'm
don't-
assuming this, yeah.
The EPP doesn't require
Right.
signatures.
Yeah, but then you
And
have
then
to.
we did turn in, but it's, I've
Yeah,
got a
we still
copy at the
have to.
office, but it's fine, yeah.
Here you go. Or do you want to do the revised one?
Yes, please do the revised one,
Revised will be much smarter.
one less.
And I could always sub out the signature page, but yes, you could always sub out the signature page. Anyway, okay, this one should be. That's the revised. I think you wrote on the top of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hmm? Yeah.
Is it true that there's no requirement for snow treatment?
You want to put today's date
I don't know.
or submission date?
You can put today's date on it. I mean,
Did you say you don't know? I don't know.
I'm not actually a member, but I
oh, it's
signed
just
it.
for the public.
Sure.
Are there ever conditions for trash removal and stuff on the site like that? That's right next to wetland, you're taking it to parking lot.
What?
Are there ever conditions about trash, regular trash pickup?
So there's a stormwater O&M that you could take a look at. But generally, you're required to
Streets and things coming north, so that doesn't get us very far.
keep things out that would interfere with its function. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a debris cleanout. Okay, so Mallory, I'm assuming you do this anyway, but could you make sure you scan and send a copy of that? Yeah, that's it. You're welcome. Thank you both for planning that all. It's nice that it was that easy. So I guess at this time, are there any Questions, comments, concerns from the commission? I guess my only hesitation to go too far down the path is that the city engineer is not, or the staff engineer is not completely signed off on the stormwater.
Yeah, there were a few.
But it's relatively, is it relatively minor in nature,
let's go
or what
back
is your
to the-
assessment?
So there was 4. I think that they are relatively minor. I think that a few we could just maybe discuss. There's not that many questions. If you,
Okay.
She really just did a very brief review though.
So I guess my concern is she acknowledges that it's a brief review. She's identified a few things, but she hasn't.
Right, done a thorough.
Right. So I would not want to
Pre.
preempt her ability to provide that more thorough review. But at this point, I guess if we can talk through the comments she did make.
Yep.
And then discuss, and if there are any questions from the public, we could entertain those, and then we could possibly continue with discussion of potential special conditions.
Do we need to see a solar panel design to make our decision? Because we really don't know.
Well, I
what
guess I'm
goes
not
along
suggesting we consider making a
not
decision at this
tonight,
time. That would be helpful, because I guess I think one ongoing concern from the previous meeting is the ability to effectively perform maintenance below of that basin area, below the panels. You know, design aside, if it's prohibitively challenging, the wrong person could be deterred from doing what they're supposed to do because it's physically challenging to do it in a way that requires more effort. No comments, no offense to anyone, but you know,
Yeah, I mean, I think-
steep slopes aren't supposed to be steep because you can't maintain a steep slope, and so in this area, if height clearance is an issue, is it going to be maintained so that it functions in the way that it was designed to function? And that's the concern, that it continue to function the way it's designed to.
And again, we just go back to,
You're waiting on that.
well, we're waiting for the final design. I think, at a minimum, we could certainly say there will be no less than X feet off the ground, if that provides any comfort level. I think, we're certainly cognizant of the fact that there is some maintenance required over there, whether it's below the panels or in the stormwater structures, and that those are gonna need to be maintained, on a regular, routine basis, regardless.
I mean, is that appropriate for a conservation commission to tell us to put a height stipulation on something for a solar designer? I also don't want to overstep our bounds in that regard and hem them into something that doesn't work.
Right. Well, and so that's why I was sort of, what I was hearing from you is you were wondering whether some
What
more
are they gonna
details
say?
about how high those are relative to maintenance was something that you wanted to see, and we can tell you that they won't be any less than 6 feet. I don't know how that'll, or 8 feet, I don't know how that changes the maintenance at all.
Well, not the maintenance plan, but the execution of it.
Sure.
So if they're 4 feet off the ground,
Yeah, absolutely.
that's going to be a bit challenging for most people.
Yeah.
Whereas if they're 6 to 8 feet off the ground, that's a little easier to maneuver around. And I guess that's my concern, that somewhere between 4 feet and 6 to 8 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mallory, what were Diane's comments?
So I'm just gonna go back quickly to this to make sure that I have the right.
Okay.
I've got, yeah.
So I believe this was relative to her general comment number 2, which was about the inverts for the drainage manholes. She said there's still only one invert for one of the drainage manholes, which is drainage manhole 1-3.
So that's this one, right? I suspect all the inverts are intended to be at the same elevation, and I think
Yep.
as we were going through, it noted two pipes instead of 3 pipes, is what I imagine.
Okay, and then she also added, she said that for the inverts added for the inlets, the invert outs are higher than the inverts in. Was this intentional?
It was added for the inlets.
Sorry, this is kind of a tongue twister.
Can you say that again?
Yes.
But slowly.
For the inverts added, I'm guessing she means the ones that you did add. The inlets, the inverts out are higher than the inverts in.
Okay,
It should
so
be
the
just
water
the
has to
opposite.
build up before it can flow out, is what she's saying.
I assume she's talking about the drain inlets in the, in this parking lot. And so the inlets in are a tenth higher than the inlets out in all cases. I don't know, maybe she had them reversed. So on sheet
I think she might have been
400.
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm going to.
So all of these inlets, these drain inlets,
In the,
have
in
inverts.
187.13 and out is 187.12, so in is higher than out.
Yes, and so that's
By-
all of these.
Yep. Just barely.
Yep.
But yeah. So, Dan, can you take a look at that?
Is that for the trenches?
Yes. So water should flow that way, right?
It's intended to flow to the south,
South.
yes.
So if it comes in at 183.12 and it goes out at 187.12, comes in at 0.13 and out at 0.12,
Mm-hmm.
it's going that way.
Yeah, it's going that way.
Yeah, so that-
That's the way it's supposed to go.
And that,
And this one's higher than this one, and that's how it should be.
yep.
Yep. Out 187.2. In. Yep, that's lower than that.
So that,
I think she might have been talking about for drainage manholes 1 to 3. Sorry, I don't.
where are
know.
drainage manholes?
They're the ones that the trenches go into. along
Over
the side.
here?
Yes. I believe so.
Please look. Please engineer.
Out.
I wonder if she wasn't understanding this exact.
Yeah, I wonder if she has the direction backwards on that, like everybody else does. Because this, my understanding, water comes in here.
Yeah, it comes in
yeah,
there, it goes
at the
down
north,
this way.
whichever end that is, and then comes down.
Right, so it flows this way, comes in here, comes back here, goes out here.
Yep. So in that case, in
I need arrows.
was higher than out, and that out on that one is higher than in on this one. Yeah, so that's all right. I think that seems right to me.
Okay, so
Oh, that's good.
that looks fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
So
I guess it did.
she noted this one, I believe, maybe the original comment, and then she went back to it again, was that you've increased the pipe size on the plans and in the field. That's the outfall of to the wetland. So the existing pipe is 12 inches, and you're increasing it to 24.
Right.
And you've changed it on the plan as well. So this increases the volume of water slightly to the wetlands during a 10-year storm.
Right, so the rate of discharge is what's, you know, what we're
I think she might be,
bound by.
I think she might have been referencing the stormwater ordinance. I know that you guys, I'm not sure if you had a chance to look that over. And then she said, she's talking about one of the pipes that was changed to 10 inches.
Yeah.
See. I'm trying to figure out which question I was relative. I think this was 4, which was that a 12-inch pipe had been changed to a,
We decreased a 12-inch pipe to a 10-inch.
Yep.
And
Okay.
there's a note somewhere in the plans that still refers to a 12-inch is what it is.
right, okay, so in the plans it said 12 inches, and then in the calcs it was
In the
10.
invert table, yeah.
Yeah, in the calcs it was 10, so you changed the plans to match
Plans.
the calcs. Okay, so she had said the pipe was decreased to 10 inches, but the invert into the basin is still 12.
So I think probably we have an invert on that, it says invert in 12 inches as opposed to 10 inches. Yeah. 10 inches.
Where would that be?
Um,
Sorry, Jen.
SWTC number 2.
Yeah.
Oh, that's, I see where it is.
Where, yeah.
So,
Where's Waldo?
yeah, so there's a 10-inch, where were we, 10-inch HDPE pipe. This shows a 12-inch HDPE pipe invert. So it's just saying that this flared end is,
Mismatched.
yeah.
So that's the,
Yeah. And it's actually not in a structure, it's in the end of the pipe, yeah.
And then the next comment was regarding the site inspection form that you had created for the O&M. Basically, what they are looking for is a more detailed version that has all of your features on it, because each feature is going to have different maintenance. So that's what they're looking for.
Okay.
We did discuss that it could potentially be a pre-construction condition to do that, but if you can prepare that ahead of time, that would be appreciated.
I guess we certainly don't have anything ready to go,
Yeah.
so
Right.
Yeah, that's
simple.
fine.
That was it.
So are there any questions, comments, concerns from the commission before we open it up to the public?
I'd like to you.
Okay.
I'm not completely convinced by your reasoning, because maybe it makes sense on the first storm, but after the first storm has passed, there's going to be remnant salt and things that will be potentially then pushed along with the next bout of snow. And my understanding is that that trench along the back is primarily detention, that it's not designed for infiltration, correct?
This back one,
Mm-hmm.
it's really to convey high groundwater.
Right, so now we're going to have snow melting in there that potentially does have salt and other sand and debris in it, and it's designed to basically convey it directly to the wetland. So where is the filtration process gonna happen for that material?
So this trench here is a stone-filled trench with a perforated pipe and a layer of, smaller stone and filter fabric at the top. So, and that trench is 2 feet wide, I think, that was the detail, or 3 feet wide. So it's a stone strip in the lawn area. Obviously, the snow pile is going to be much larger, so there's going to be grass and other places that aren't specifically just for that trench that will take up some of that. Just like any of these other areas. But what does melt will, get into that trench and be discharged, at this outlet, which has got a level lip spreader and, elements to it that protect, protect the adjacent BVW from any, from any discharges. Though there's no,
Where's the trench detail?
we're proposing to stockpile snow in places that, A, are clear, and B, are in surfaces that are at least vegetated to the extent that we can to allow, snow to melt depending on weather conditions. This, similar to this structure, that is all, where stormwater structure or feature is located, so would operate in very much the same way.
That trench is this French drain detail? Yeah, okay.
That's 3 feet wide.
So sand being conveyed with the snow melt, or the snow being removed, will pretty much sit on top of that. And salt is going to be dissolved, so it's not really going to be removed by any kind of stormwater treatment device.
But that's, I guess that's the same with any of these, other structures that, similarly discharge to either, this wetland or, or even here for that matter.
Right.
I mean, any snow that's piled in the parking lot will go through a very similar system and be discharged, in a different location, but in a very, similar fashion. There's removal removing salt from, from water is not something that's very easy to do or inexpensive to do.
Do we have room within the operation and maintenance plan to require any sort of alternative salt treatments to keep that out of the wetland area? I don't know if the stormwater bylaw allows for that.
Yeah, I don't know. My my experience, and I don't know a lot about it with alternative salt treatments, is a lot of them are like chemical based. They actually, when we're the kid and pet safe stuff that we use on our driveway when we shovel the snow under our lawn, where we place the snow, is super green and lush for the next couple of weeks. I think it's got a lot of nitrates or ammonia in it or something like that.
I don't know. There's the food-based ones, but I don't know what sort of nutrient content they have that might be problematic.
Yeah, it's just not a lot of different ways to do it.
I do know, for whatever it's worth, that we use very low salt in the mix that we put on our current driveway. I don't know how to quantify it, but because of our concern for the environment, it's sand with just a little bit of salt, not very much. And we don't generally throw just salt on if it's helpful.
I'm scrolling through DEP's guidance policy right now.
They passed it around recently.
Who did?
I think Mark did.
Okay. So the preference is to put them on impervious surfaces with stormwater systems or upland areas, pervious surfaces in upland areas. Avoid dumping into wetlands and waterways. Avoid dumping, I think a lot of this has to do with like mass dumping.
Mm-hmm.
Avoid disposing of snow on top of storm drain, catch basins, or in stormwater drainage swales or ditches. Snow combined with sand and debris may block a storm drainage system, causing localized flooding. The volume of sand, sediment, and litter released from melting snow may also be quickly transported through the system. Well, this won't hit a surface water anytime soon, but
Do you even need that trench drain, really? I mean,
You'd be surprised how much groundwater's coming down that hill from all those farm fields behind.
mm-hmm.
Are you concerned at all about clogging that system with sand?
No, I think, part of the idea is that we have a system that has the ability to capture sand. And, in the case of a stone trench, if it does become clogged, we've done it in some rain gardens and other, similar features that, if there's a particularly high sediment load for whatever reason, the maintenance protocol is you just need to dig up and replace the stone. But usually filter fabric and, a little bit of a separation layer between what's below is makes it a little bit easier to do.
how much sediment is a trigger for cleaning it out of a basin? Accumulated.
In
As
the,
part of the
in
O&M.
the structures, in any of the structures?
In any of the vegetated areas. So like that linear
In this
swale.
Swale, yeah.
And or the other areas, what's the tripping point for accumulating, for removing accumulated sand that may have washed in there and deposited? Is there one noted? I see.
There isn't one noted. I guess, in theory,
What's that
snow
noted?
snow aside, by the time stormwater gets to these features, there shouldn't be much, if any, sediment in it anyway, because of all the pre-treatment that's required to avoid that whole thing happening. So, any sediment, I would anticipate, if it collects at all, might be just from from any snow piles. And we can certainly add something to the O&M plan. I would suspect that it would entail, at the end of the winter season, going in and hand removing any accumulated piles of, sediment that might have melted out.
So I guess I'm just wondering how to make that less qualitative, more quantitative, so that it's less subject to discretion and interpretation. Because what one person sees as a potential problem, another person might not, and really, again, it all comes back to that the stormwater features are designing as functioned as part of the overall system. So, on page 3 of the stormwater, proposed stormwater O&M, where dredging / sediment removal.
Yep.
Accumulated sediment shall be removed from the basin at 5-year intervals or as required to maintain the function of the stormwater management system as designed. So I guess, assuming it hits that point for 5 years, what is that design threshold? Does that make sense? Is it 1 inch? Is it 5
What
inches?
constitutes accumulated sediment? Like what is?
Right. What would that?
Yeah, like in the next
Or
one,
as
it's
required.
neatly defined that it should be removed and disposed when sediment deposits are greater than or equal to 1/2 the depth from such and such. So,
Right.
we just like to see that clearly defined.
So the only way we could really do it is probably by putting in some elevation markers in that basin. Would be the only way to really do it, I think.
Well, that would certainly visually convey that, but what is that? At what point is that, time to happen?
When do we? If you're asking me, I think anything more than a couple of inches is, it's going to affect the capacity of that system. So if there's, 2 inches of sediment in the bottom, it should certainly be removed. That's quite a bit of
So,
sediment.
Mallory, have you written conditions that require sediment staff gauges?
I have not.
Okay, well,
New
I think I
experience?
would. I don't think this is really going to stretch your abilities too much, but I guess the only thing is I'm not. Who's the right person to say what that depth is?
You would like the applicant to propose?
Are you proposing?
I'm fine with, an inch of material. I mean, I honestly think that it's going to take quite a bit of, sediment to fill that whole basin up with an inch of material. But that I'm fine with that. I really
It's also
don't
not going to
anticipate that it's
deposit.
going to be a
It's
lot.
not going to deposit evenly.
No, but I think, it's going to depend on flows. This might stretch. Okay. Would you consult with the city staff engineer?
Okay.
Okay. No. Does anyone else have on the board have any questions, comments, concerns about anything to date?
Nope.
Okay. At this time, I'll now open it up to the public. Are there any questions, comments, concerns relevant to the Wetlands Protection Act and the city stormwater ordinance about this proposal? Okay. Being none, suggest that we discuss special conditions under the Wetlands Protection Act. Mallory, do you have any in mind based on your review and this or the site visit or anything we've discussed to date?
I'm sorry, I just actually remembered
Oh.
one other comment that I just
Mhm.
wanted to make. So I was looking at and I'm not sure because I haven't looked at the
Mhm.
printed plans, but some of the overlays of the items that were changed on the new plan set, they cover up some of the details, like the inverts and things of that nature on the site plan.
Oh, those call-outs?
Yeah, like I couldn't see them on the computer, but
Let's see where.
Do you have any one in particular that comes to mind?
it was
so that we could
mostly
look-
along Route 10, like along that side of the area.
Over in
was kind
here?
of where, yeah, I think you had just kind of like
100?
I can.
Easier.
It was on the site plan. I forget which page number it is, but it's on the site plan. There was a granite curbing pot over there, along the hillside.
Oh, this note? Mhm.
Yeah, there was
How
some
much?
further down as well. It looked like there were
Some of those are, some of those are existing notes, yep.
Like this. I think that's the one.
Yeah, there was a couple. there
The
was like
the
two
curve
of
goes
them.
right through the.
Yeah, so I think just like tidying up some of those.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean,
Ooh.
I would.
Yeah.
I know it's
I
hard to
think-
do with a
Well, and
lot
I
of-
think a lot of this is, I mean, the reality is all these drainage structures wouldn't show up on this site plan necessarily, they would show up on a drainage plan. So I think some of those layers probably just got left on from, yeah.
Mhm.
But we can certainly go through and clarify anything if it's unclear.
Mallory, can you go through the drawings and come up with a list of what you think needs to be,
If anything.
if anything? Just not in terms of revisions,
Right.
substantial revisions, just
In terms of
adjustments to clarify text, appearance.
clarity. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So.
Conditions?
So I know there was a note about post signs delineating wetland boundary typical of 5. Where is that typical detail?
I didn't include in detail.
Okay.
It was insofar, we got as far as proposing to put the signage, we can certainly provide that as a condition.
Yep. I guess what,
Provide some verbal description of what I envision, if that helps, but.
you know, I'm interested in some form of monumentation. If it provides some description as to what the sign's about, all the better. I guess rather than, and I don't know I guess you said typical of 5. We have some, I'm trying to look at this and envision where 5 would go and be most effective.
Yep. And so what I did is just try to lay them out evenly along that edge, whether that's the appropriate location or not is, yeah.
I guess I would, looking at that is more like, I'm looking at key vertices, almost, key points. You know, I think one thing we noticed was a little bit of encroachment here during the site visit, rutting. But, you know, key points being the corner where it comes closest.
Yep.
Somewhere in this region. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, what we've done before is we've specified a maximum distance.
It's 20 feet usually.
Yeah. So, I mean, here it's pretty wide open. So, we don't have flag IDs, but how would you?
I would go
I
for,
don't think we need to do the entire field at this point in time relative to the work that's proposed. I think it's, again, it's that who's out there doing this maintenance and having that constant visual, no further encroachment reminder.
Mhm. Yeah, perhaps extending to the outlet structure where it's fairly obvious, yeah. I mean,
I would want to bring it back a little bit too, because, I guess point of clarification, there are 3 different parcels. Is River Valley taking ownership of all 3? So then, the long-term landscaping maintenance, there's the area between the edge of the road and the wetland boundary that gets mowed regularly. Is that the continued expectation for long-term O&M? So then we might want it to go further.
Mhm. On the other side, like along,
Parallel to
Parallel to
Northampton
Route
Street.
parallel to the road, yep, okay. That makes sense.
It does drop off pretty steeply as you get closer, as you get further south.
Mm-hmm.
So we could just kind of do parallel to Route 10 and then skip an area around the outlet and then continue up along the parking lot?
Along the north side
Yeah,
and back, sure.
okay.
At a distance of no more than, you said 20?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what we have normally done.
Okay. I'm fine
Do you
with
have
that.
any specifications on permanent monumentation? I've had some folks who felt that that was unclear in the past. Did you want granite markers? Did you want?
Seems awfully,
Mm-hmm.
I know we've had some people,
Small concrete ones,
yeah,
2x2 or something like that.
like a bollard,
Yeah.
almost. I think granite's a bit much.
Yeah.
And I just want to
Eyeballed
question
them.
whether, well, at 20 feet,
Mhm.
we're at almost 80 to here.
80?
80, well, if you do every 20 feet, this is, I mean, this
That's
is,
400.
this is about 100 feet right here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start up in this corner, there's
5,
100, 200,
10,
300,
20,
400,
30.
divided by 20 feet.
I was doing 5, 10, 20. So 5 per 100 feet, right?
5 per 100, yes.
Yeah, so 5,
Sorry,
10.
5, 10 feet, yeah, 20,
Okay.
I'm sorry, yes, my math was
It's
wrong,
okay.
right.
Your,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
spotlight does wonderful things. Yeah.
20 of them, right.
So,
Okay. Do you want?
and I don't envision it serving any purpose if it were to go along the westerly side, because that's kind of, is that maintained or is that just more natural? How it's a long parcel north to south, and the boundary just kind of parallels more or less parallels the parcel boundary, interior to it. And so the areas that I foresee having regular routine maintenance, like mowing, are along the north boundary and then between north to south along Route 10. And that's where we would want to have it very clear where the wetland boundary is relative to where the limits of mowing can occur or continue to occur. And so that's you get too long a span between signs, and it's easy to lose them visually, and you don't want them to be right on top of each other because then it's a picket fence. So just trying to find the effective medium there.
Be nice if we could come up with something that kind of looked natural, but was clear, so it doesn't look fence-like.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think what we're discussing now is a shorter, so it wouldn't
These are
really.
the ones that a tree house look like.
Okay.
Yeah, those ones
So,
are good.
do you mind sharing
Sure.
that? So it's a short concrete, it will weather. Oh,
Probably sticks like a foot out of the ground. These look like they're almost, 3x3 or 4x4.
Sure.
So depending on the mowing regime, there are times when it wouldn't be. Another option would be large boulders, but that could be,
I like those as well.
but that could be, I don't want it to be cost prohibitive.
We've actually, we've got a few, because
Yeah,
there's
there's some
boulders
over
that
there.
line this whole side of the site right now.
Could alternate.
Yeah, I think those would look really good, actually, personally.
And that would reuse the material that's already out there. I don't know how many there are.
Quite
Yeah.
a few.
I think it would be
Again.
good to add a couple signs that say like this is a
Mhm.
wetland area, and you could actually do a real sign, and
Yep.
that could also be an education point for.
Yeah,
for
I think,
guests.
especially in some of the more public spaces that, where
Yeah.
people might walk, that we'd like
Okay.
to try to take advantage of.
Mallory. So it'll be some combination of the two.
Sure.
We're using the materials on site. Go from there, okay.
Do you have one question, a minimum distance? That,
20 feet seems
I mean,
awfully.
from the wetland,
Oh, I think they should be at the wetland boundary. I mean,
at the boundary itself?
Yeah.
Okay.
the intent is not to. I mean, there's already
Yeah.
a natural vegetated strip adjacent to the wetland boundary,
Right.
so.
I just know in the past, some of the past permits have said like at the 50-foot line or something like that.
That would-
Obviously,
I
that's
think-
not possible. in
Right,
this
and I
area.
think those were for sites where there wasn't already surrounding development, so it was trying to maintain as much of a buffer to protect the wetland as possible, whereas here, you've got impervious areas.
Okay, so at the boundary.
Yes.
Okay.
We have pretty standard conditions regarding any pre-construction submittals, including but not limited to final, or any requirements we set forth. So here, what's outstanding, if anything, Mallory?
For special conditions,
Mhm.
let me go back to my. I think that you were asking about a solar detail,
Yep.
but you want that for your,
For reference.
would you like that, are you planning to continue, and would you like that brought before, or did you want that as a condition?
I think that can be a condition.
Okay, so,
How others feel.
That's fine.
solar detail.
A 7-inch gauge
Yep, so I already have that.
at, and I would say at within 5 feet of the discharge points to the to each basin. I guess that's probably where most stuff is gonna fall out.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are going to consult with the city engineer, staff engineer regarding a maximum depth to trigger removal if within the 5-year intervals. And that will just be included as a special condition, as part of a special condition.
Did you want to provide a more detailed stormwater inspection form, or did you want to make that a pre-construction condition? Sorry, that might have been unclear who I was asking. I guess both.
Just give him a,
Yeah.
would you like
We can
that?
certainly provide one, yeah, this was a first attempt at, trying to
Okay.
provide her with some, some sort of what she's looking for, and if she wants more detail, we can certainly, we're happy to work with.
Okay.
Dan or whoever to-
So Mallory, do you think that that could be, revisions can be accepted outside? Public meeting?
Outside of You
As
mean
a
after you've
pre-construction
issued?
requirement?
After
Yeah.
you've issued, yeah. I think that could be a pre-construction
Okay.
condition. And then you have your regular pre-construction conditions, which
What
are
is a minimum notification that works for you?
for the pre-construction meeting.
Yes.
Um,
Because you have
limited hours.
less flexibility in your schedule.
So it's more relative to like the days of the week that I work.
But if you were to get 10 business day advance notification.
Yeah, of course.
Coordination.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I could do probably 5,
let's say 10.
10. Okay.
I don't want you to be in a bind.
Okay.
You know, if we make it a condition, I don't want it to place an undue burden.
We also, one thing that comes up a lot, and I'm just going to go over it because it has come up a few times, is that when an applicant goes to apply for a building permit, we do not sign off on building permits for a stormwater permit requirements until the stormwater bond has been submitted. So a lot of times that gets like lost in translation, and then you have your building application in, your building permit application in, and we can't sign off on it until that has happened. So just to let you know, just because I think quite a number of people have encountered that issue.
Sure, sure.
Did you want to talk about the mowing? Put any specific conditions relative to the mowing, because I know some of that has been encroached a little.
I feel like the monumentation is going to alleviate that. But I think maybe we can just state that landscaping activities, including but not limited to routine mowing, shall not encroach upon the wetland resource area.
Okay.
And then a standard condition about landscaping materials, including but not limited to collected leaves, lawn clippings, shrub trimmings,
I
etc.
think that we have something to that degree.
Yeah, I think so. Shall not be deposited within a wetland or its buffer zone.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really. Did you look at the landscaping plan? Just gonna take a quick look at the planting list. I doubt it, but it's probably not a. Jeff, did you come up with did you contribute to this list?
Yes.
Okay. So, looking at some of these, obviously, the native ones are very clear. Japanese black pine, I mean, I don't think that's on the invasives list.
There's definitely nothing on the invasive list.
Okay, so even this thornless honey locust, what is this?
It's a honey locust you see all over.
I really
Yeah.
only seem to so the locusts that have thorns.
Yeah, no, it's a thornless variety.
carpinus.
Yeah.
Okay. How does this vary from Carolina? Carpinus.
Oh, it's just it's the cultivar. It's the
Okay.
upright version as opposed to.
I see. I don't think there's anything. In fact, there are quite a few native species. So
Oh, yeah,
It's
that's
okay. Okay, that is a non-issue.
So, are there really 1,234 Japanese black pine species?
No, that's I noticed that as I was
Okay.
staring at that.
I might want to just clarify
I
that.
think it's 12.
This is going to be a forest.
In that case, that's gonna.
Kick it into the parking lot.
All right. Okay. Mallory, will you reiterate a standard, I know it's not currently proposed, but a standard ongoing condition regarding prohibiting the use of invasive species? And I realize that's completely incongruous with your vision, but belt and suspenders.
Yeah.
Okay. What type of fertilizer is proposed?
There'd be a small tablet type fertilizer when the trees are planted. I think we'll.
Is it a slow release?
Yeah.
Slow blah blah, okay. Anyone? Jump on in. Okay. So, I would like to, oh geez. I would like to include a special condition about the, final disposition of the mulch-filled erosion control barriers, that is subject to consultation with the Conservation Commission and/or its agent. And then Mallory, can you reiterate the construction period reporting requirements? As they generally read, it's weekly, it's basically the SWIP inspection.
Yeah, it's weekly, and then there's the SWIP, so.
So within 24 business hours of a quarter inch of rain or more?
Provide notification.
Yeah, so like
Yeah,
twice a
yeah.
week last fall.
Sure.
So is that and weekly?
If that is the weekly one, though, that can be the weekly one. Doesn't mean you have to go out
Yeah.
twice.
We haven't been-
depending on,
It's, yeah.
it's what's, yeah. But,
I think there was just further past confusion about when folks have had bi-weekly reporting per
Yeah.
SWIP, and then we require weekly reporting. But we also require weekly reporting for any project that doesn't have a SWIP, or stormwater permit, just in general during the construction period
right,
for
so
updates.
the city stormwater ordinance reduces the threshold from an acre to 10,000 square feet
Okay.
to capture smaller sites that
Yeah.
probably may not be managed as well, but
SWIP
this will have a
regulation.
SWIP, so.
Mhm.
Anyone down the line? Jay?
Good.
Dan?
Did you want anything about the floor drain? I know that we discussed.
Actually, what I would, that's a couple things that brings to mind. Notification of the commission through its agents, email, of within 24 hours of any, dewatering, groundwater dewatering activities, so anytime you're discharging to the dewatering system, I would note that, and I imagine some of that may have to do with where the work is occurring, but limiting the location of the dewatering sedimentation facility to upland areas, and I don't know if we can say as far as feasible from the wetland resource area. And then notification of the commission in writing in the event any floor drain connections and/or illicit discharge, other illicit discharges are encountered and decommissioned.
Sure.
And obviously, if there's a reportable condition
Right.
under the MCP, the commission would want to be aware of that. Julie? Nothing at present. Mallory? Jessica, anything else? Okay.
I don't think, permit, we have condition number 1, but I was just thinking about Mass DOT and then, or any, like, if any of the project gets split up, because I'm unclear about, whether the city's gonna do Lyman Street or if y'all are planning to do Lyman Street. And I know Mass DOT said that you said that they weren't, but that they would be issuing.
They'll be issuing an access,
Permit.
yeah,
Yeah.
access permit.
But, I mean, that's condition number 1 for the,
Get every permit you need?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, if the city decides to do Lyman Street, we'll certainly know about it.
Yep.
So,
Is there an acre of disturbance without Lyman Street?
Yes.
Okay. So, the site's covered.
mhm.
They are not responsible for the city.
No.
And, well, we always have a condition, well, there is a condition that says you have to get all your other permits.
Mhm.
It's not really on us to enforce Mass DOT
No.
access permits. I don't even know how we'd be, we couldn't do that, so. Okay. So now we have procedure. Sorry.
First, from the stormwater permit perspective, do we have an estimate of stormwater improvement cost for bond purposes?
Actually, do not believe that I do yet. I know that she was working on it, but I don't think that I received it.
Okay.
Are we intending still to give the engineer more time to review?
I think that they are not. I mean,
A piece of information that we need for the stormwater permit, right?
the bond amount, yeah.
Otherwise, Julie raises a good point that the city engineer hasn't completed a thorough review. Based on all that we've discussed tonight, I don't envision any major issues, but I would not want to deal
Mhm.
with having to re-advertise and reopen the hearing.
Mhm.
You can write things up, theoretically get them ready to go. And literally hand off at the next meeting. Is that feasible?
Mhm.
Barring any major curveballs?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do we have a punch list for, is it only the city engineer's review, or do you have a punch list of any other items
I
that you
think
would
that
like?
was it.
Okay.
And the bond. For
Yeah.
the city engineer's
Mhm.
review,
With the bond.
final review and approval, and the bond.
Mhm.
But I think with this very thorough and patient discussion,
Mhm.
I have no concerns at this point.
Mhm.
So, procedurally, do you have anything else, Julie?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so I think procedurally, motion to continue to February 11th at 6 p.m.
The public hearing to February 11th at 6 p.m.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, so, thank you all.
Thank you. You said 6?
Everything's at 6.
Thank you.
Everything's at 6, just in case. So, thank you. Valerie, do we have these plans electronically?
I did not
yes.
see the updated ones electronically.
The 128s?
Can we take a coffee break or something?
No. I'm such a crick. Fine.
Oh, gosh.
All right, next item on the agenda. Request for certificate of compliance from David Boyle, A to Z Storage, Mass DEP file number 151276, 184 Northampton Street. The The commission received a request and performed a site visit on Saturday, January 19th, at 9-ish a.m. Present for the site visit, all commissioners and Agent Larkham present. No, Dan Buttrick, absent Dan Buttrick.
Oh, you were there for part of it.
Partially present. Whatever, you'll
With
get that
those.
right. And Mr. Boyle. Everything, with everything, site appears to be stable. Anything additional that needs to be done falls under stormwater O&M. He was given authorization upon ground thaw to remove remnant erosion control barriers. Were there some by the outfall?
A little bit, but not much.
So, but that he can't, yeah, but that can't be done right now because the ground's frozen.
So,
Get ready.
do you feel that you,
Grocery shopping after this.
What's the matter?
I still feel grocery shopping after this.
Sorry. Come on. Do you feel what?
do you feel that you would like to issue the COC with the ongoing conditions?
Regarding stormwater management in perpetuity, yes. That is my inclination. Anyone else?
Yes.
All right, is there a motion to issue a certificate of compliance with ongoing stormwater O&M in perpetuity?
Move to issue an order
There's-
of
No.
There's a few,
certificate
sorry.
of compliance.
There's a few conditions that, I just pulled from that will be ongoing, so.
Okay, with ongoing conditions, of 34, 37, 38, and 48 through 51.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Sign.
No, actually, I'll take the other two.
Just go on your toes. Use this one. It's not that special.
Except there was a time when you weren't there and somebody else said it. Did you just say
I said, oh, God.
Second.
And that's our limit. Thank you. Moving on, unless something's been issued today, we have no emergency certs?
No.
Great. Enforcement actions. Bernard Gall, 37 South Street, EO 2013-001. Mallory, at some point you're going to check the file, recap, and reach out to Mr. Gall's son, Matthew Gall. Great. Next item, Bernard Gall, vicinity Groveland Street, Florence Road, map 115, lot 2, map 128, lot 64, DEP ACOP 00001958. No further action at this time?
Correct.
Autumn Properties LLC, rear 161-165 Northampton Street, EO 2016-001. Is that another one you can follow up on?
Yes.
Okay. Cernak, Westview Terrace, map 165, lot 47, EO 2018-001, on hold for the winter?
Yes.
Yes. Is it St. Bridget's Cemetery or Lady of the Valley Cemetery?
It's St. Bridget's Cemetery, but it's,
Referred to as something differently now?
But
Is
it's
that
the owner.
is that the parcel ID?
yeah.
Okay.
So they have, let's see, I have the
So-
first one.
So this is Everett Street. And this is what Mr. Wolak brought up during public speak at our previous meeting, concerns regarding historic, up to recent times, dumping within a ravine/stream between his property and at 109 Everett Street and the cemetery, by the cemetery. Commission did a site visit at 8 o'clock on Saturday, January 19th. All commissioners and Agent Larkham were in attendance. We observed at the upper portion of the nearer to Everett Street, a significant amount of dumping of concrete debris, slabs/debris, as well as landscaping, yard waste-like materials. There is a stream at the bottom of the ravine. It is a direct tributary to Lower Mill Pond. What the commission also observed along the St. Bridget's Cemetery side of the embankment was that there was periodic deposition of soil that would spill over down the slope toward the stream. This was explained by Mr. Wolak, I believe, as excess material from interment sites. So, Mallory, have you had a chance to follow up on this? Is there any enforceable action here?
So I did go out and take another look today while I was swinging back from another site visit. It's hard to tell with the snow cover about the other sides. I mean, it looks like that around within the buffer zone of the pond and within the stream on the other side. It looks like it's happening all around because that's where
It's kind of like this.
being pushed. There's less graves on the other side where there's a little ravine. So it seems to be a little less over there, but there are some topographic features that look unnatural in that area. So I would say that it's safe to say that there are various.
So what is the recommended action?
So I would recommend issuing an enforcement order. You know, you have known fill, an alteration of a wetland, and then kind of a general order, a restoration plan for any encroachments on the property. And you would probably want through that an operations and maintenance plan for that, so that you knew that the soil from the graves wasn't ending up in any of the wetlands or within that area. Obviously, they can continue to maintain their.
Yeah. So is that something you can draft? Thank you. All right. Are there any updates regarding Echodale West Orchard?
So I got Chris Politan's contact information. I sent him an email, so I'm just waiting for him to respond.
Okay, let's zip through compliance updates.
Real quick.
Yes, Michael.
I was absent from
The Everett Street site visit, yes. That's a good point to note. Thank you.
So the owner on that, by the way, just to clarify, is on the
Archdiocese
property
of
card
Springfield.
is Immaculate Conception School.
Is that the one from Franklin?
Their address is listed as 33, like their billing address is listed as 33 Adams Street.
They don't get billed.
Or, I'm sorry, mailing address.
Yeah, no, it's just a point of clarification that
Nonprofit.
well, that appears to be an accurate,
That's where Our Lady is, or whatever.
that appears to be an accurate,
Yeah, because it comes up as
an
Our
appropriate
Lady.
mailing address, because otherwise it's not always, non-tax parcels don't always have the most accurate data associated with them, because
They don't.
they don't need to send a bill. Okay. All right. Is this the correct expiration date for Pleasant Street Mills? I thought they only asked for a 1-year extension.
Did I give them a 3-year extension?
I gave them a 2-year extension, and I actually think they asked for it through December 20th, 2019.
Yeah, it should be.
So that's just a
Okay.
point of clarification.
Yeah, I think I did do that, maybe. Yes, they had done, yeah, I gave them,
So it's a less than 1-year extension.
yep, so 12/20/2019.
Okay. So can you just clarify that is it clarified?
Yep.
Thank you. All right, and I'm assuming no updates.
No.
Lathrop. any updates?
No.
Williston Northampton School, Mass DEP file number 151286, cross-country running trails.
Yes, so there was a request for extension on that.
Request for extension?
Yes.
It's on the
Okay.
end of the.
Was it received,
It was received on the 22nd, I believe.
so just at the deadline?
Yeah, there's 31 days in January.
It only has to be 30 days in advance.
Right, and there's 31
Okay.
days in January, so,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
So right about it, that, yeah.
Okay, so that will be on our next agenda?
Yes.
Okay. City of Easthampton, National Pond Veg Management, no updates?
Correct.
Loven Properties, we were last told that that was on hold for the season, is that correct?
Yes.
Looks it.
Riverside Industries, they've opened their bridge.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
So this is one of the last ones that I haven't had an opportunity to follow up on, so
Okay.
this is in my draft emails, but
Okay.
unsent.
got it. James LeGrand, replacement of existing retaining wall.
No.
City of Easthampton, maintenance dredging White Brook and Broadbrook.
No.
Holistic Industries, 155 Northampton Street.
Yeah, so they had submitted a stormwater bond, and then I received a call last week. They had submitted a building permit application, and they were wanting it very soon. But they were wanting to swap out their checks. So at this point, I don't know what.
Have you confirmed that they've recorded their order of conditions?
No, I haven't. I'm not. We're gonna sort out the stormwater
Okay.
bond, and then we'll go, and review. I got a set of construction drawings from the building inspector that he was provided for. Sometimes there's variances, so
Yep.
I usually once I get the bond, I start doing the review. So.
Okay. All right. The One Ferry Street projects.
No.
Easthampton Park Solar 1, solar at 232 Park Street.
No.
All right, meeting minutes approval. November 26, 2018.
The Minkle thingy isn't on here.
The what?
417
No, Mr.
East Street.
Minkle has been, that
That's done.
emergency cert has long expired and that has no longer on our agenda.
Okay.
Okay, meeting minutes, November 26, 2008.
Would you like that one, Miss?
You have an update on Mr. Minkle?
Yeah, so I actually spoke with, I reached out to the engineer and I asked him to provide it in writing per the, any specification, any, sorry, I'm.
It's late.
Yeah.
It's very
Any variances between the, plan as permitted and the installation. So he did respond back, and there was a minor pushback of the head wall, about 12 inches, which actually gave more wetland.
Toward the driveway?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it actually.
That sounds
it
good.
It looks good. So they still have to do some seeding in the spring, so they will let us know when they have done that.
Okay. Thank you. November 26, 2018 meeting minutes. Present were Melissa Cody, Julie Busa, Dan Buttrick, Jessica Harwood, and Jay Ryan. We have an appropriate quorum.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. To Mallory, please. All right.
Move to approve.
January 14th, 2019 meeting minutes.
Second.
Third.
Fourth.
We're ready to move on. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So moved. All right. Thank you. I think that means we're caught up on meeting minutes, Mallory.
Excellent. So you got the 26th finally?
Yep.
Congratulations.
Oh, I abstained on that last one.
What was the date of the first meeting minutes you said?
November 26th,
What was the date of the second one?
January 14th.
Oh.
I was not present for 11/26.
You are listed as absent. I think that was, can I see those minutes?
To not approve.
No, I think, was it final action on 232 Park?
Oh, was that a special?
That was the
I
special
think
meeting.
Was this a Monday? I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was.
Special meeting.
But that doesn't mean it wasn't the
Well,
special.
there
We
was-
held an extra one.
There was a meeting where the only item on the agenda was a conflict of
Yeah,
interest
that's what
for
this
you,
is.
and you
Solar.
elected not to
Yeah.
recuse yourself and leave.
That was November 26th?
Yeah, true.
Because we didn't have a second meeting in November, so instead we had a lot of second meetings in November.
Moving on, is there any correspondence
That was
/
awesome.
agent updates?
Well put.
Nothing imminent.
Thank goodness. Okay. Receipt of request for extension from Williston Northampton School DEP file number 151286. This will be included on our next meeting agenda. Receipt of, NOI, Mass DEP file number 151297, filed by Easthampton Park Solar 1 LLC for solar project at Westview Terrace, map 165, lot 47, filed 4/10/2018. So noted. Is there any other business?
That just stays on there until they make a move.
Or it hits like, what, 2 years?
Yeah.
And you have to read it every time.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I mean, I can take it off,
Second.
but then
All those in
we-
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
No.
At 8:15. Oh, geez, Louise.
Okay.